All right, Sabres are off for a little bit, but we've got something that we have not had in the entire history of this podcast, at least. Best on best international hockey. Let's talk about it, especially today, the Sabres that are going to the tournament and what we expect their roles to be. Coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into today's edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Today's episode is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, check it out at FanDuel Sportsbook. Sportsbook.fanduel.com. Welcome into this edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Sneaky Joe DiBiase, happy to be talking to you on a Tuesday. The Sabres are in the midst of their 2-week break, but we've got a lot of good hockey to talk about upcoming. Starting with a game tomorrow, we've got the Four Nations tournament that is going to be taking place in Boston, in Montreal, Team USA, Team Canada, Sweden, and Finland as well. We have got best on best international hockey for the first time in over 9 years. And I cannot wait to talk about it. Today's edition of Locked On Sabres, I want to get into especially Rasmus Dahlin and what his role is going to be for Team Sweden, who he's been practicing with so far, and also Team USA. I have been harping on for years about USA has the talent finally to compete with Canada talent for talent. Not just, hey, let's block shots and grind out a 2-1 victory where we're getting outshot and our goalie gets hot and we beat Canada that way, which has happened, right? The 96 World Cup, that happened. The preliminary round of the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, and almost the gold medal game. The U.S. took it to Canada. But they've never had a talent level like this that is almost on par with Canada, if not even on par. And if you include goaltending, maybe even argue slightly above. So we'll talk about what this U.S. roster has really come together as. And last little rant from me on Tage Thompson not being there. The lines at practice for USA scream, oh, I wish I had a Tage Thompson here. But I think in a year, we might be seeing him at the Olympics. So a lot of good stuff to get to on today's edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you are looking for any updates throughout this tournament, if you would like to talk about Team USA or what some of the Sabre guys are doing, and you want to hit us up, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. You can sign up for our Locked On Sabres text club. Before we get to all of that, and if you're watching on YouTube, by the way, you can watch us on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe if you are watching there. I've got my Team North America hoodie on for today's game. This is the last time we've had good international hockey. 2016 World Cup of Hockey in Toronto. I went to it. I went to a couple of games, one of which was TNA against Russia, which is still one of the greatest hockey games that I have ever seen in my life. It was the fastest hockey game I think I've ever seen. It was really good stuff. It has been 9 years since that. And if you forget, Team North America, what is that logo? That's a cool logo. Team North America was 23 and younger, US and Canadians on the same team. So what's interesting about that is that tournament, most of the carryover, like almost all the guys that are playing in this tournament that played in that one, played for Team North America. You have Crosby, right, for Canada. You have Hedman for Sweden. Like, there are a couple of guys that 9 years ago were in the primes of their career still and played for their countries. But a lot of the guys that played in that tournament that are playing in this tournament played for Team North America. Never forget TNA. Before we get to any of that, though, let's kind of do some housekeeping on where the Sabres sit here in the February break. And I think you know where they sit. I mean, it's far, far out of the playoff picture. That loss against Nashville on Saturday prevented us from talking as though they had a 5-game win streak for 2 weeks. They could have had that, but it's not like it really would have made a monster difference in the standings anyway. They are 12 points back of a playoff spot. Had they won that game against the Predators, they would have been 10 points back. Is 10 feel that much more realistic than 12? I mean, I don't think there's really much of a difference. The Sabres are still under 2% to make the postseason. They have been sitting in last place. In fact, I could look at this up for you. When is the last time the Sabres were not in last place in the Eastern Conference? I believe they have been down there for the duration of the calendar year. Yeah, January 1st, they were in last in the East. If I go back to Christmas, they were in last in the East. How long have they been in last? I mean, I'm going back. Remember, the 13-game losing streak really did a number, so it's probably before that. Here we go. I got to go back to December 16th to find the last time the Sabres were not in last in the East. So they've been down there at the very, very bottom for almost 2 months here. So a win against the Predators would not have changed much. All that being said, frustrating. Very frustrating. The Sabres outplayed the Predators, I thought, in that game. I thought they had the better chances. I thought Rasmus Dahlin played one of the greatest games that I've ever seen from a defenseman. He was that good. He was unbelievable. I thought Bo Byram played really well as well. Like those two, for a pairing, it was one of the greatest games I've seen of a defense pairing, especially for the Sabres I can't even tell you the last time. I mean, it was perfection from those two. And they both scored goals. They both, got in on the assist game as well. They always had the puck. You couldn't take it from them. It was one of those games that I would chalk up to, you just want your goalie to make a couple extra saves. Like, not all of those were total whiffs by Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, but over the course of 23 shots, I got 5 goals against, and I would have really liked Luukkonen to have turned away 2 of those that were high danger chances, because you're getting paid that amount of money to be a number 1 goalie. I need you to bail me out once in a while. And Luukkonen has not done a lot of that this year. He's done some of that. And in this game, he definitely did none of that. So that happened in this game. And then the other thing was the offside review on the Zach Benson goal, which I'm such a big fan of Zach Benson that I'm disappointed for him when I see that goal get taken off the board, because Benson, again, is not really there yet when it comes to finishing his chances in the NHL. And that's one where Dahlin sets him up perfectly in the slot, and it's one-on-one Benson and the goalie, and he puts it past him. I want that to count for him, because again, he is, I think, trying to get better at that, but he's going to need an off season really to do it. And that gets taken off the board when, if you looked at the blue line angle of the puck, I don't know how they saw anything. Those refs, I mean, it I guess to me did look like it was offside, but here's the NHL. Do they need definitive evidence, or do they just want to take an educated guess? Because I don't mind taking an educated guess, but do that all the time. Because in my opinion, if I were taking an educated guess, I would have said that play was offside. It looked like the puck was in the air, was short of the blue line when Alex Tuch entered the zone, but you can't see that definitively. So uphold the correct standard. Do you want to take an estimate, or do you want to see definitive evidence? I'm good with your estimate, but so often they need definitive, where, the puck's under a goalie's pad. We know it's in the net, but they're not going to call it a goal because we need to see it. But yet in this instance, we kind of know the play is offside, but we don't see the puck offside. So we don't need definitive evidence for that. NHL being inconsistent, but what else is new? And again, if the Sabres were in a playoff race, I would be more mad about it, but whatever, I guess. So let's get to the Four Nations tournament. Let's turn the page. Hoping to see Jordan Greenway back on the ice when the Sabres come out of this break. They will be in action next, not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after the fact against the New York Rangers. And by that point, we will be very close to the trade deadline. So it will be deadline season once the Sabres come back from break. February 22nd is their next game, and then the deadline at March 7th is obviously going to come up very quickly. So when we come back, I mentioned Dahlin. I thought coming off one of his best games that I've ever seen, just because he was so dominant against the Predators. He goes to Team Sweden now, and I'm interested in what his role is going to be, because a lot of people are going, why isn't he on the top pair? I'm wondering if he is on the top pair and what his role is going to be, whether it's a 25-minute-a-night defenseman for that team. I kind of think it will. But we'll get to that when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Sneaky Joe DiBiase. Also, a little talk about Team USA today. Today's edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. When the games tip off, the NHL and the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or the opening face-off, you can bet on a third period or fourth quarter comeback. You can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay. This international tournament, the odds right there for you at FanDuel Sportsbook. If you like futures, Canada is the slightest of favorites at plus 145 over Team USA. US, though, right there at plus 155. Sweden plus 420. And then Finland way back if you want a long shot bet here at plus 1,000 for Finland. And you could bet on the individual games. U.S. is favored over Finland. You've got the U.S.-Canada game on Saturday, so you can get in on all the Four Nations action with FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. It's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Be sure to like and subscribe us on YouTube. And if you want to sign up for a Locked On Sabres text club, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres is the place to sign up for that. So let's get to the Four Nations tournament, and let's start with the Sabres that are going to the Four Nations tournament. No Tage Thompson, super disappointing, but we are getting Dahlin, and I'm very excited to see Rasmus Dahlin on, let's be honest, the biggest stage he will have ever played on since he has been drafted by the Buffalo Sabres. I know it's kind of a backhanded compliment, or it's a kind of a slap in the face to the Sabres, but it's true, right? Like, they have not played in a playoff game, and I am taking this tournament to mean something. The players are acting that way. I do not think it is a glorified all-star event. I think the players are going to be giving max effort. I don't think Sidney Crosby would be playing through injury to go to this tournament in Montreal and Boston if it didn't mean something. I don't think for Sweden, former Sabre Linus Ullmark, who missed a month of time with an injury, played one game back for Ottawa, and is going to this tournament to be the starter for Team Sweden. I don't think Linus Ullmark would have been pushing to get back and would have played in this thing after only being back for one game if this tournament didn't mean something. I don't think Matthew Tkachuk would be talking about running dudes at this tournament if it didn't mean something. I think it means a lot, especially to these players who have been itching to suit up in their nation's colors for a decade and have been unable to do so. Sidney Crosby was 27 years old the last time he was able to suit up in a best-on-best game for Canada. Connor McDavid has never had the opportunity to do that. These guys, some of them have gone their entire career so far without this chance. Dahlin, one of them, right? I mean, the World Championships, he has done that, but the World Championships is not best-on-best. That is, C-level squads, guys that would never make their national teams if everybody was open to the player pool and the playoffs weren't happening. You just have guys that would never make it at those things. Dahlin's last time playing for Sweden, where it really meant something, meant a ton, was the World Juniors, 7 years ago. So for him, I think it's a big deal. And I'm got the line combinations of Daily Faceoff up right now on our YouTube stream. And you might be looking at that going, what is Dahlin doing on the third pair? I've seen a little of that. Complaints about Dahlin being on the third pair. I personally do not believe that he is a third pair defenseman to start this thing. Now, it's possible. It's possible, of course. But I don't think we know, because these coaches have not yet said who's the number 1 pair, who's the number 2 pair, who's the number 3 pair. I think from my best estimate, and everyone's doing their estimations, right? Like this is daily faceoffs where, okay, Dahlin looks like he's on the 3rd pair. I think it's the 2nd pair. And I wonder if it could even potentially be the 1st pair after just a little bit of action in this tournament. You don't have to worry about it. If Dahlin plays the way he did against Nashville this past Saturday night, he's going to be the top pair defenseman for Team Sweden. There is not a higher level of play than that. Sweden's got some dudes, 100%. Victor Hedman has been a horse for a long time for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He has played in best on best for Sweden. He's been around long enough to do that. But Hedman is not the Norris winning defenseman that he once was. And I understand when saying that Dahlin has not won a Norris yet either. But it's been 7 years since Hedman finished 1st or 2nd in Norris voting. He's still been an amazing defenseman that entire time, but he's not as dynamic as he once was. So again, still a very good defenseman, great defenseman. But Dahlin, if he's playing at his best, that's better than Victor Hedman's best right now, in my opinion. Erik Karlsson on the quote-unquote 2nd pair with Mattias Ekholm. Karlsson is not at the level that he was in his heyday in Ottawa or in his first couple of years in San Jose. He's still an insane puck mover. He still is an insane one-way defenseman right now offensively. But if you're looking for an all-around guy, Dahlin over Karlsson. To me, Dahlin is their best defenseman. And even if the coaching staff starts him off on the 2nd or the 3rd pair, if their plan going into this thing is, well, Dahlin's going to play 18, 19 minutes a night, I think within a game, if not 2, he's going to be playing 25 plus. I just think he's playing at too high of a level, or can play at too high of a level. Now, that being said, he's not playing power play. Hedman is on the number 1 power play unit. Karlsson is on the number 2 power play unit. I think it's the same thing. Like, I think Dahlin could play his way into the number 1 unit or the number 2 unit. So I guess I'm just not really that worried about it. I trust that team, if Dahlin plays well enough, is going to play him a lot of minutes. And I want to use his defense partner as kind of a tell here as well. Gustav Forsling, if you paid attention to the Stanley Cup run that the Florida Panthers had last year in the playoffs, Gustav Forsling can play at an elite level on the blue line. I would say as much as Mattias Ekholm and Jonas Brodin, these guys playing with Hedman and Karlsson, are very good defensemen, I think Forsling's better. So to me, I think Dahlin's got the best partner of the other 2 stud defensemen up there. So that being said, I think Dahlin's role is going to be, you're eating up minutes. You are the guy for us on the back end. I think he's going to get there over Hedman and over Karlsson by the end of this tournament. Not many games, right? So you don't have as much opportunity to do that. But I think that'll happen. You know, with these graphics, I do really look like Locked On Sweden here with the colors. Sweden's jersey is just always the best, right? I saw, I listened to the Dan Le Batard show a lot. And Mike Ryan, who is one of their producers, he was wearing a Team Sweden jersey on their show today. And I'm looking at that thing. I'm like, I got to buy one of those. I got to buy a Dahlin Sweden jersey. You know, I don't know that I would put that much money into a Sweden jersey because those things are like $200, but maybe it's worth it. That is a sharp jersey. If he wins it, if he wins the tournament and he has a great tourney, then maybe I'll want it because it's a sweet jersey. Now, the other 2 Sabres that are going to be at this thing, I don't know how much we're going to see of them, or at least what kind of level we're going to see of them. Let's go over to Finland now, where we have the other 2 Buffalo Sabres at the Four Nations. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in goal, as well as Henri Jokiharju on the blue line. Now, the thing about Luukkonen is I don't think he is probably in the rotation for Team Sweden, or Team Finland, excuse me. I think what we are probably going to see is UC Saros to begin the tourney. And I don't know if Luukkonen is even the number 2 or if Kevin Lankinen is the number 2, but I don't know how much opportunity we're even going to see for another guy to come in, because if I'm Finland, the only way I think I pull an upset is if UC Saros stands on his head. He's the goalie that has shown the highest level of play of the three guys I got. He's having the best season of the three, right? Luukkonen's had a rocky campaign. And Saros has been much more consistent over the years. Now, this year, Saros has had a little bit of a down year. In fact, it's his career low in save percentage, but he's also playing on, again, Luukkonen, you can make this excuse too, I guess, but Saros playing on one of the worst teams in the league. So I would run with Saros. I guess I'd be a little surprised if we did see Luukkonen. Jokiharju, we are going to see out of necessity. I got it right now on the YouTube stream. Look at the defense pairings for Finland. That is the weakest of the groups at this tournament. I think actually there are two of them. Canada in goal, which is what helps even the playing field between the U.S. and Canada. Canada at goalie, starting Jordan Binnington, is maybe the weakest position group. Actually, second. I think it has to be the Finnish defense. The Finnish blue line is tough. Esa Lindell and Olli Mata on the top pair, Jussi Välimäki and Henri Jokiharju on the second pair, and then Nico Mikkola and Vakaninen. I always struggle with his name. He is on the third pair. You've got guys getting called up that have played like 18 games this year and don't have a point for Finland on the blue line. I mean, Jokiharju being on the second pair is kind of all that needs to be said. I mean, he has not been good for the Sabres this year. He has been a healthy scratch for a lot of the year this season. And right now, the way the Finnish blue line looks, like I think Jokiharju is going to have to play. I think he's going to have to play 18 to 20 minutes a night. You know, he doesn't have to play power play. He's probably going to have to be one of their top penalty killers. So we'll see. Jokiharju is going to play. And I guess I could be wrong, but him being exposed in situations against lines that are Austin Matthews led or Jack Eichel led or Nathan McKinnon or Connor McDavid, just when that team plays Finland and or the other top teams, the other top forwards, I think they're going to get smoked on the blue line. It'll be up to their forwards because I like the forwards up front for Finland. Barkov, Aho, Hintz, and Lundell down the middle is good. That's very good. Teravainen, Rantanen, Lehkonen, Granlund, Kakko, like Lutzernainen. These are not bad forwards up front. The forward group is good. It's just, again, that blue line is just horrific for Team Finland. So Jokiharju going to get a lot of action. I just don't expect it to go all that well. When we come back, Team USA, I want to get one last check-in with them before the tournament gets rolling, but we'll be talking plenty about them even after the fact, especially leading into Saturday's Canada and U.S. game. That's when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates fast. Been in the spot where you need the right hire, like yesterday, the pressure is on. Every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs comes in handy. They will make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Very excited to be talking Team USA, international hockey, and I am glued to the television screen for the next 2 weeks as this tournament takes place. And Team USA, so glad that we're finally getting to see it in action, see it tested. I think it's been at least 3 years where it's been evident that, okay, the U.S. is up to speed now. They've got the talent to match Canada. And the frustrating thing for me is they still don't want to lean all the way into it. They still want to act like we can't match them stride for stride, which is why I think you get guys like Vincent Trocheck and Brock Nelson, who are good hockey players, but to me, not near the level that this team should require. But they're on the team because of this fanciful idea that Bill Guerin has that those guys are going to be better at defending the star players on the other side than guys that have more talent. Trocheck especially has had a bad year beginning to end with the New York Rangers, and that includes defensively. He to me is the example of Bill Guerin not watching these dudes play. I don't believe Bill Guerin watches the league other than the Minnesota Wild. I can't believe it because he put Vincent Trocheck on the team as if this was 3 years ago. So very disheartening that they made that decision. And yes, from my seat, little biased because I thought Tage Thompson deserved to make the team. I'm not the only one, though. We had Mike Zeitzler covers for the Toronto Sun, who covers this tournament. We had him on WGR this morning. He said the same thing. Like, I can't believe Thompson's not here. Thompson is on almost a 50-goal pace. And Thompson has made strides defensively. You could argue he's a better defensive player right now than Trocheck is. But here's Trocheck here. So I wish there was a little more talent there, especially the way the lines have been put together. The biggest growth the U.S. has seen in their hockey development since the last time they won a game. They haven't won a game since the Sochi Olympics in best on best. I mean, they did not win a game at the World Cup of Hockey in 2016. The biggest difference is center. They are finally there at center. They have Austin Matthews. They have Jack Eichel. They have Jack Hughes. They have Tage Thompson, although Thompson been playing on the wing more recently. But it's mostly those top three. And it would be nice to have Thompson available, especially when they're not going 1, 2, 3 down the middle. They have moved Jack Hughes to the wing, playing with Austin Matthews. And I get that. It's understandable. Hughes is one of your 3 best forwards. You want him in your top 6. So let's move him off center, get him in the top 6 on the wing. So what that has created then is JT Miller being the 3rd-line center and Vincent Trocheck being the 4th-line center, when I think it would make a lot more sense for JT Miller to be your 4th-line center and a Tage Thompson to be your 3rd-line center. But they didn't want to do that. So I think they could be more talented. But still, Matthews and Eichel. Like, I know Sabre fans are not big fans of Jack Eichel right now at all, but just approaching this tournament for what it is, Eichel and Matthews are hugely meaningful. Like the Joe Pavelski and guys that, Brandon Dubinsky, some of these tournaments that they've had playing center, the U.S. is just not stacked up to Canada at center. And those top 2 guys now do stack up. Matthews and Eichel do stack up. So Matthews with Hughes and Gensel, it's a great line in the top 6. Eichel with Kyle Connor and Matthew Tkachuk. Interesting that they're splitting Brady and Matthew Tkachuk up. I'd like to see them play together. I get it, though. Matthew Tkachuk more deserving of playing in the top 6. Brady Tkachuk, more of a 3rd-liner at this point in time. Matt Boldy on that line as well. Boldy is really good, but Boldy could have been on your 4th line as a power forward if you had Cole Caulfield on the team or Thompson playing on the wing. I just think they could have more talent. And then the one more disappointing thing about the U.S., they have the huge advantage in goal. Connor Hellebuck and Jake Ottinger, if you want it, over Canada with Jordan Binnington, Aiden Hill. Huge advantage for the U.S. in goal. They also had the advantage on the blue line, and I don't know if you would still say that. I might still say it, but to me, it was definitive before the Quinn Hughes injury, and now it's close. When Quinn Hughes was healthy, U.S. had the better blue line. Now you take Quinn Hughes out of the picture, really tough. I mean, he's one of the best defensemen in the world, and he was going to be, I think, the U.S.'s number 1 guy. You take him off. It's still great. Jacob Slavin, Adam Fox have been practicing together. You got a Norris winner there. You got a very underrated defenseman, Jacob Slavin. Zach Werenski, who I would vote for to win the Norris right now with Charlie McAvoy, is a great pairing. The 3rd pairing takes a little bit of a hit because you take Quinn Hughes off. The trickle down isn't there. But Noah Hannafin, Brock Faber. Brock Faber, if you haven't seen him a lot, Minnesota, young guy, he's been very good for the last 2 years. Very good. So again, missing Quinn Hughes, but that blue line to me is still slightly better than Canada. And then on the power play unit, interesting, John Tortorella is the dude that is coaching them. I saw a clip of him coaching Eichel, Hughes, and Matthews. I'm like, what is that conversation sound like? But that number 1 power play unit for the U.S., Jack Hughes, Austin Matthews, Matthew Tkachuk, Jack Eichel, Adam Fox, with Hughes in the slot, Tkachuk in front of the net, Matthews and Eichel on either side, ripping the puck, and then Adam Fox at the top. Again, Quinn Hughes, if I'm being nitpicky, would be better at the point, but Fox is one of the best defensemen in the world, so he's no slouch in this department. So the U.S., I think, could be better, and I hope next year at the Olympics, they're going to have Quinn Hughes available. They're going to have Tage Thompson on the team. They're going to have Cole Caulfield on the team. So those are three guys not there right now that I think could give them a better chance had they been, but I'm not getting too worked up over it. I still think this is the team to win the tournament. I think they are better top to bottom. They have the forwards and the centers to compete with Canada. They have the blue line that I think is still a little bit better, and you have the massive advantage in goal. That, to me, should take the U.S. over the top. I would pick them to win this tournament right now. Can't wait for it. Wednesday is our first game, Canada and Sweden. Thursday, Finland and the U.S. We'll be talking lots about it over the next couple of days. We'll talk some trade deadline stuff as well. Of course, we'll have some Sabres content for you throughout the week as well. Thanks for listening. If you've got a thought on this tournament, you want to talk about Dahlin a little bit in this front, and you got a thought, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. You can follow us on Twitter at LockedOnSabres. We will talk to you tomorrow here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Be sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Steel and Flip got you covered wherever you get your podcasts, and more off-season stuff with Joe Marino on the Locked On Bills podcast.